What's up?
How's it going? This is Aki, New House Studios. You can introduce, you can talk yourself up much better than
I'm
I can.
Aki from New House Studios. Yeah, that's about it. I run the studio. This is the studio. It is all around us. We do studio things. I'm also in a bunch of bands. But yeah, that's kind of what I do with most of my life is play a lot of music and mix a lot of music. Um, I do not experience very much silence.
That's good though. That's like kind of like the dream, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and it can be rough, but it's glad to see that like someone's like thriving and doing really cool things. And
there's in freelance world, there's it's usually surviving is about the best you can ask for.
totally, and it's definitely a
But
hustle.
it's yeah, it's most fun thing that I've ever had to struggle month to month with.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like my consolation now is that, like, I mix really sick music and I don't have a boss. So it's like, yeah, sometimes a project takes too long and I get paid, like, $8 an hour. But, like, some people have, like, real jobs and have to work at places with shitty bosses and, like, shitty customers, and they get paid that much. So, like, yeah, I'll take this.
yeah, it's still way better. So,
Mhm.
what have you've been mixing a lot of like live sets lately, and then the last couple streams I'm hung out, you were mixing the one record in Ableton.
Yeah, my, Aaron Spear,
Yeah,
um, I've, worked with him. I've been friends with him a while. We actually the first DreamWell tour ever, uh, like we like a weekender, but it was his band, and James, who I also run the studio with, was in that band. It was a band called Struck Out. They're from the West Coast, and they came out here for their first East Coast tour and DreamWell's first tour ever. Um, so we go back pretty far. Uh, that band ended around probably the end. I think it was actually the end of that year, and James moved out here, and Daniel, um, he started he doing like solo music. Uh, so he had us work on the albums. I've been mixing and mastering, or James has mastered the last EP. And he's done a bunch of percussion and drums on the albums too. I've done the mixing for them though.
that's awesome.
So that's why I've been working on that a lot lately. I've been doing the mixed masters for New Friends Fest, which is like really cool. Um, just like because I was at New Friends Fest, uh, and it wasn't just like a concert. It was like straight up one of the best weekends of my life, and
Hell
like
yeah.
some of the best sets I've seen in my life. And like I was like front row for a lot of those sets too. Um, so getting to like mix and master the recording of a set you were like in the front row for, like, oh my god, that changed my life. Like that's a really cool thing to get to
Yeah, that
do.
sounds awesome because like you have such a personal connection to it, but then you also get to like help like recreate it for
Yeah.
other people. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, I felt like I was part of that, and like um I know like the Hers collective set especially was really special for a lot of people. Um Myself included. So it's cool that it was like, "Oh, I gotta make this like special. Like I really gotta like I can't let people down. It's gotta
Yeah,
hit."
yeah,
And I was doing all the mixes without video. Like I just had the audio. Which is interesting for live sets because you get little like hints about what's happening, but you don't like know exactly what's happening. Like, oh, that sounds like a mic fell, or it sounds like the vocalist is in the drum set right now because there's so much bleed.
yeah. It's like what's going on here? Yeah, I know
Or
because
you get,
live.
like, some mic feedback at some point, but that's, like, all part of the fun is, like, it's not gonna be perfect because the live set's not perfect, and that's you want it to sound, like, real and, like, immersive more than, like, perfect and clean. Yeah, I actually had a moment where, I made the mistake of one of the first sets I started mixing was the DreamWell set, um, and I was, like, real excited to get into it, and I was like, "Oh god, I sound like shit."
Totally.
And
Totally. I
I was like,
understand that.
"God, did we really play that bad?" But then I was like, "Oh, no," like, I was thinking about it, and it's like, all the bands, like, when I try mixing them like a really, like, tight, like, studio recording, like, everyone's gonna sound kinda shitty because, like, we were all on a loud ass stage with, like, in a room at, like, 120 dB, um, it's kind of an unhinged environment. There's, like, reflections everywhere, like,
Yeah.
frequency response can be kinda weird, and, like, nobody in the crowd notices if you're, like unless you're, like, fucking up really bad or you look like you're pissed off about it, like, if you're having a good time and, like, playing somewhat competently, like,
Yeah.
like, it's gonna hit, and so it's like I kinda wanted to make especially at the I wanted to make the guitars a little washy, so that they sound good, like, the way live guitars do.
Yeah, they have that little extra, like, high-end, like, just presence because of the room. I totally understand that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I use, like, a lot of room reverb too, so just stuff like that to try to really capture that, like, feeling of it. And that's, like, one of the best things I've ever read about mixing, was, like, the mix isn't done until you're, like, moving, until you're,
Mhm.
like, bobbing your head and, like, um, have you like, uh, if I'm, like, stank facing while I'm, like, mixing on stream, I'm like, "Okay, yeah."
That was good.
Like,
Totally.
that the stank face doesn't lie,
It totally.
like, I can, like, second guess myself all I want and be like, "Well, it's not the right thing to do," but it's like, if it sounds nasty and, it's not going to compromise everything else, it's the move.
Totally. Yeah, like, last night you were pulling out the what was it? The distortion on, the synth track and stuff, or there was the guitar one. You're going through, I think it was Trash.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Like it was just sounded really cool and like that's totally what you're saying. It's like if it's not gonna take away from the song, it's gonna add just that element. I was actually gonna kind of ask you about that too because you have that trust, that relationship with the client that you're able to make really cool creative decisions with their music. I thought that was really cool. And like, how do you kind of go about that?
So the first album, Daniel gave me, like, a lot of, like, creative leeway to even, like, add, like, production type stuff, and do some, like, recordings too, like, it was, like, super open-ended, that was before I started doing this full time. I was still working my old job, so I could kind of treat it more like a passion project and be like, It's I'm just gonna, like, lay some whatever down." I these days, it's like, alright, I have to, like, put a little more limitations on what I'm doing, um, so I'm mostly sticking to, like, mixing and, like, I'm not adding any, like, uh, new instrumentation on this album except for where we kind of, like, originally talked about it, like, I did guitar on one of the songs, um, but, yeah, we do have that, like, that sort of trust just because especially for this kind of music, like, he called his, like, first album, like, this isn't, like, an album, it's like a mixtape, like, um, it's like a collection of songs that, you really wanna capture the collaborative feel of it, like, he has a lot of guests and he really wants to capture, like, the collaborative feel of it and, like, the fact that it's, like, a bedroom album. Um, like, it was made in a bedroom, and it's like, even if it's mixed at a studio, like, I want it to sound clearer and to, like, reinforce the sense of direction and the character of it, and also, like, he also emphasized a lot, like, really, um, like, adding a lot of, like, using my analog gear or even, like, the analog modeling stuff. So I've been kind of leaning into that sound too, but trying to do that as opposed to, like, making it sound like a $1,000,000 album. Trying to make it sound like a bedroom album, but with, like, the clarity and, direction of, like a seasoned mix engineer.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and the other thing that there's, like, that trust is that, like, not only does he know that I do my own, like, I work on my own music, I do production in my own music, but also he has also been getting into mix engineering. So he actually handed the mix off with, like you saw in some of the sessions, there's a lot of stuff in there already. Um, Especially this time around, like, there's definitely been times where I'm like, my default's kind of like, all right, time to get rid of these Ableton stock effects and like
Mhm.
put in my fancy shit. Um, and I'll be doing it, and I'm like, I need, I need to check. I need to like go back and make sure I actually made this better.
Yeah,
And
totally.
there's been a few times where I'm like, I'm not going to do this effect justice. Like, there's one today where it was like a very specific type of distortion on the vocals. Um, and it was like, I mean, it was like, oh, he clearly like super deliberately like dialed this in, like, and did automation on it. It probably took a long time. And it was kind of in that like that place you get when you're just like vibing writing a track and you're
Totally.
really just like locked into it. Um, and it's like, who am I to like come along and be like on my eighth song, be like, fucking mix like 60 hours this week and like do that distortion better. Like maybe some like maybe some of the time I can, but like today it was like, nope, this is not better. I'm gonna keep the rest of my vocal chain, but I'm just copy pasting his distortion because like he definitely figured it out. He knew what he wanted on that. And I'm not, if there's one less mixed note of like, "Hey, I liked the thing I had. Why'd you take it out?" And then my answer is, I just 'cause I didn't listen to the rough mix and I wanted to do my own thing or something."
Yeah, totally.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Like,
I
there's a
yeah.
balance of, like, checking the reference material and checking the rough mix, but also, like, letting letting myself have free reign to do what I want. Like, if I'm really in the zone and have a vision for it, I'm gonna do that and be like, "Hey, what do you think?" But, like, if he, like if I'm kind of hitting a wall and I'm like, I don't this sounds okay, it's alright," like, I'll check the rough mix just to be like, "Well, what was the vision of this?" Like, maybe the mix isn't, like, how I would mix it, but, like, the vision is always there, like, the intention's always there in the rough mix, like, the relative levels are there, um, and, like, there's a lot to take from that. Just always balancing putting my own going in my own direction and putting my own sense like, character on, but also staying true to the vision.
That's awesome, yeah. Um, 'Cause when you're in the mix, you could totally, like you're saying, get lost in the sauce. It's like you just start going in a
Mm,
direction. I totally understand that. But,
yeah.
did you
And sometimes it's like you need to do that, especially when you're like, um, getting new plugins and trying them out, and it's like, well, what can this do? What noises can I make?
totally.
Uh, gotta learn somehow, like
Yeah.
even if it's not gonna be useful. Like sometimes I'll just fuck around with the sounds because there's a chance it will be good. Um, and if not, there's a good better chance that it'll be good for something else.
Yeah, and it's like a
So
learning
just keeping that in the back
experience.
of my head.
Because you use some of the neural stuff, right?
Yeah, I have the the, Gojira and the, Dark Glass, it was like, "Okay, I can't get, like, 15 of these things because 'cause they're kind of expensive, but, like, if I got 2, what would they be?"
Totally.
And I had heard a lot of good things about the Gojira, um, and, like, yeah, it's definitely probably the best amp sim I've used for, like, distorted music, and the same for the Dark Glass too, like, it's so good that James and I are, like, ditching the bass mics on a lot of stuff we're
Yeah.
mixing. And also we were doing a lot of reamping with, like, bass and stuff, and it's like, do we even have to? Like,
Yeah, if you could
for
cut
some
something
reason,
out of
it's
the
just like
process.
I put it on, and it's like, "Yeah, that sounds," like, I don't really, I'm not unhappy, like, I'm gonna EQ this a little, but, like, the tone is a great starting point, so, like, I don't need to, like, endlessly fuck around as much. Probably worth looking, sometimes there's, like, hidden gems, like,
Yeah.
when you get a plugin or that has a whole, like, effects suite in it. What is it James just said told me today, he's like, "Have you tried," I don't know if you know Trigger 2, it's like the
Yeah.
Slate resampler. He's like, "Yeah, if you ever need to gate drums, like recorded drums, just, like, use Trigger 2 as a gate without the
Oh, yeah.
actual resampling." And
That's
I was
that's
like, "Oh,
genius.
that makes sense
Yeah.
because the gate is the gate is for the detection, but it also is just a gate, but it's, like, optimized on drums. Like,
Yeah.
they did all the testing and stuff on drums, so I'm like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense."
Did you end up mixing the Dreamwell and a constant knowledge of death stuff too?
Um, I haven't mixed a DreamWell album since our long lost secret first album,
Oh yeah.
and I haven't mixed an ACOD album since, 2019.
Okay.
Um, but I've been heavily involved with both of them. So with DreamWell, yeah, our album that's no longer up online, The Distance Grows Fonder, I did, record and mix that. Um, One thing about that one, was first of all, I did it a long time ago, but also, we were recording it as, like, a demo. So we were, like, I was really just, like, rushing through it with the recording process at first, like, I didn't put tom mics on the drums because 'cause I'm just like, "Yeah, whatever, we just need, like, music
Yeah.
out there."
Yeah.
And then we're like, "Ah, this is pretty good, we should just, like, add a couple songs and turn it into an album." Um, which is, like, part of the reason why it's like, "Oh, this is, like, our first album, like, asterisk." Modern Grotesque was, like, the first one that it was, like, an album from start to finish, but, like, just that process was, like, really exhausting. I don't know what it was, like, I mix a lot of my own music. I think it's when something's a studio project from the start. Um, but Dreamwell's always been a band that, like, writes songs in a room together, and having to, like, bring that into the studio and, like, translate into the studio while also, like, worrying about, like, my own stuff. I was just like, "I don't really wanna do that again." Um, and, I wasn't mixing at the level I am now, like, even, like, 2 or 3, 4 years ago when we recorded Modern Grotesque. So it made sense to, go somewhere else. We went to, the Noise Floor studio in New Hampshire. I think it just closed
Oh,
somewhat recently. Um, but, with Ryan Stack, who recorded and mixed both of our last 2 albums. He also did, "Whenever If Ever" by, The World Is a Beautiful Place.
nice.
Um, and that was we actually before we knew them, um, like, personally. Uh, so, yeah, we went there for that, but, I still have kind of been, like, the in-house, like, audio person. So I did pre-pro for both those albums, which was kind of because it's so much translating from uh like a live setting to a studio setting. Like that was the first time we were putting our songs into a DAW, which meant that was the first
Dang.
time we were like, oh, like Wait, there's a tempo change here. Oh, this time signature is like 15, 16. No wonder this part's fucked up.
Yeah.
Uh, like, I was just figuring out all the weird nuances, and, like, how to, like, fit it onto a grid, and how to, like, take your parts that are, like, 5 musicians in a room and turn it into a studio setting, like, we have 2 g like, me and Rye, both play guitar, and I do a lot of the leads, Rye does a lot of the rhythm, and it's like, uh so how do you want that to sit, like, in on the album? So, a lot of the time, it's like, do we if I'm doing more rhythmic stuff, if it's, like, we're both doing kind of rhythmic stuff, then we'll, like, hard pan our parts left and right, but if it's a clear, like, lead rhythm division, then it's like, Rye needs to double track their parts, and I need to, like, be center panned, but it's like that type of thing you don't, like, have to deal with when you're just playing in a room.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so it's like having to like start translating that. Um, so for in my saddest dreams, I basically just handed off a Pro Tools session that had the whole album like mapped out with tempos and time signatures and had all of the scratch tracks in it. So that like when Anthony went to record drums and he was like, "Well, what's at this part again?" That he could just like hit on mute and hear like the parts. Or like play along to them if you had to. And it was just like, okay. So we mapped out this whole album and like scratch tracked it. Um, and now we're gonna like do it for real and like actually like get put more time into the getting the recording quality in a better space. And also have somebody whose brain is fully committed to recording to do this. So I guess it was like kind of producery type work in a way too. Um, And then there ended up being a lot of stuff on that album where it was like, we don't need a studio day for this. Like for the main instruments, like, yeah, we want to be in the studio and get like kind of the make sure we're getting like top quality sound. But a lot of it too is like me experimenting. So it's like we don't need to waste everyone's time with this when I can do it myself. So a lot of the backing vocals that I did here. A lot of kind of the ambient guitar effects, and just miscellaneous stuff. Like I did a little acoustic guitar in one spot.
Nice.
Actually, some of the more interesting ones that like I don't even know if anyone has really noticed or commented on was um, at the end of All Towers. There's kind of like the outro, and there's like the string parts. That was I layered like 50 tracks of violin.
Oh, nice.
Because that was like my first instrument I ever learned. I'm like super out of practice. I can't play classical music for shit on it anymore. But like, if I need to make like horrible noises to like create a creepy soundscape, I can do that all day. Like, I just layer 50 of those, and it sounds like it's super vibey.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
so I've done a lot of studio violin work, and like especially the last like year and a half. I actually I did a violin part on Victory Over the Suns album, which I
Nice.
also mixed, and, that was definitely one of the more, like, high profile albums I worked on, so after that, everyone was like, "Oh, you play violin? Can you do violin on my stuff now?"
You do this? How about that? Yeah.
And it's like, the good thing about being a mediocre session musician with a studio is that no one needs to know you're mediocre.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
'cause my string parts sound great when I give them back. Um, when I'm tracking them, there's no frets on a violin, like,
Mhm.
that shit is not in tune.
Yeah.
Um, or, like, maybe I got 10 takes and it was in tune on one of them.
Totally.
Uh, so, like, I'm doing surgery, I'm doing Melodyne, putting reverb on it, and it will sound good at the end of it, but, like, uh, I'm not gonna be a live violin a live violin player again anytime
No,
soon.
totally.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, that's, like so with DreamWell, I'm just kind of, like, the in-house audio person, but, like, I don't always, I didn't actually record and mix those albums. I was kind of I did a lot of, like, the mixed feedback too because, kind of beyond, like, "Oh, my part sounds mixed correctly," everyone else in the band has a lot less opinions on the mix.
For sure.
Um, like, once it's past the basic things, and I'll be they'll be done with their mixed notes, and then I'll be like, the balance like, you need to, like, high pass this one track at, like, 200,
Yeah.
hertz."
Good exact
Stuff
notes
like
though.
that.
That
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, like, I can kinda hear it at this point. Um, or like, "Oh, you need to can you, like, move that, like, fade in on that feedback track by, like, half a second?"
Yeah. You're like, "Okay."
So I can, like, get into, like, the nitty-gritty, like, notes of it. Um, and also, like, just doing, like, miscellaneous audio stuff, like playthroughs for the band or, like, stuff like that. Uh, what did I Oh, I had to there was, like, an intro for the Sayaka video, and I needed to put, like, an ambient soundscape over that. So I ended up doing some, like, audio editing for that. So just stuff like that where it's, like, good to have an in-house audio person.
Totally, you bring that extra, like, dimension to the table, which is awesome.
Mhm, and then the ACOD album, the last one was, James mixed that one.
Nice.
I recorded my own guitars, and, most of the bass, uh, but, and then I was kinda doing the same thing and, like, sitting over his shoulder nitpicking while he did it. Um, but he totally killed it on that.
Yeah,
Definitely the best sounding ACOD album so far. Uh, cause yeah, that was just another thing where I was like, there's no fucking way in hell. Like, I know I'm gonna be, like, obsessing over this album if I'm mixing it. It's gonna take me, like, 300 hours, and it probably took James that long. Um, but he has another full-time job,
yeah.
so, uh, for me, it was like, I don't think I can take that
You need that
on.
separation.
Yeah, and it was, like, like it was, like, a good project for him too to, like, have to be like, "Yeah, I mixed this." Um, and yeah, and for people to be like, "Hey, like, can you mix my album? Like, make it sound like that one?"
Yeah. That's awesome though. I mean, both the Dreamwell albums, because I've been listening to them a lot lately. I wanted to like catch up because I'd gotten into your stuff because I randomly found you on Twitter. I think it was either through like Joan or Mia or something, and
Mhm.
then it's like, oh yeah, because I remember you posted something about touring. I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna check this out. But the albums are really sick. I really like.
Oh, thank you.
I really dig it. Like Dreamwell is really cool because like you're saying, it's so hard to probably to map it and everything because you guys are just vibing and it has it so
Yeah.
the songs move around. It's really fun stuff. And then the ACOT stuff, like I love that heaviness and just going for it. Like because you did that video, was it for was it Bleed for Me with
Yeah,
the
Bleed for You,
pedal or
for,
Bleed for You?
electronic audio experiments.
Yeah, that was such a sick video and like
Oh, thank you.
I think the night before you were mixing on stream and we were talking about the Metal Zone pedal. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I always wanted to run vocals through it because I wanted to see how it sounded. And you guys did it in that video. I was like, oh, it's so sick.
Mhm. Yeah, I put a lot of, um I feel like the type of vocals I do, like, kinda like black metal-y, like, fry vocals, are very well suited to, like, distortion. Um, and, like, there's a lot of like, any distortion plugin sounds pretty good on, like, those kind of vocals, but, like, it's super fun to mess with it with, like, pedals. Like, I haven't done this in a while. I'll have to do a stream where I do this if I can figure out the logistics of it, but, like, doing doing a mic into my pedal board and then just doing that in front of my amp, so it's just a big, like, feedback system, and then just messing with my pedals. I'll have to try I'll see if I can try that without, like, blowing everyone's ears off sometime.
Yeah, I know it's so super hard with
But
music
that's, like, a
stuff.
lot of fun. just to get like horrible like noises out of it. I'll do the distortion and then I'll also like pitch shift it. So it'll just be like the most like ungodly sounds.
Yeah, just weird squeals and screams. I remember going to NAMM every year for a few years there. It was like, oh, this is just like, it's just pedal playtime. That's what NAMM was for.
I keep wondering if I should go back again. I went in like 2011 when I was like still in college.
Yeah,
I could probably get a pass now. I don't know. It just seems like to be too many diseases there these days.
totally. Totally. It's yeah, because there was always the NAMM Thrax anyways. So now
Yeah.
it's like, ugh. And like when people are going to like GDQ and like other things, I'm like, man,
It's
talking
like,
about
yeah,
like
it's
the
all
horror
COVID.
stories. Exactly. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's not worth it anymore.
I'm already gonna get COVID like 3 times a year from touring. I can't like
Yeah, want to
I
add
can't get any more. Like my brain shrinks a little bit every time.
every, yeah, you don't want to pile it on. But then,
Yeah.
speaking of touring, you're about to go out with DreamWell, right, in April.
Yep.
Nice. Because then you guys are adding some more dates. I think I saw today or yesterday, right? Like you're doing some of the off dates.
Oh yeah, that was our on our way out and the way back. So we're doing like a couple uh yeah, we're doing 4 headline shows on the way out and 3 on the way. I think it's 4 out and 4 back.
Nice,
Uh so yeah, the first leg first show we're playing with Sonagi, a really cool screamo band in Philadelphia. And then the next 3 nights with Wounded Touch, who actually Nick, their vocalist, did the guest spot on All Towers.
oh nice.
So I'm assuming that's gonna happen live, which is gonna be there's gonna be 2 angry bald people screaming on stage instead of just 1.
Nice.
That's gonna be a real treat. And then Circuit on the way back.
Nice. That's yeah, because you guys are based out of Massachusetts, right? Like right outside of Boston, or
Yeah, we're like a Rhode Island band. Three of the members live in Rhode Island. Our practice spot is actually in Massachusetts in Attleboro, which is like on the border with Rhode Island.
okay.
And then I'm in Massachusetts, and then KZ's in Arizona now.
Oh dang.
Actually, Justin might be in Massachusetts now. We're barely hanging on to like the Rhode Island part of our band, but like that's kind of like our home base. Like we play the most like local shows in Providence. Um, it's kind of split playing local shows in Providence and Boston.
Nice.
It also kind of depends on like where the most active scene is, but like our days of kind of like jumping on like 20 local shows a year are kind of over now.
Nice. That's good though, because being able to branch out. I know the local hustle for sure. I've
Yeah,
played.
it's funny now because like ACOD's just getting into playing shows live.
Oh okay.
Um, so like DreamWell gets like so many like local show offers, and it'll be like, well, KZ can't like fly out like 5 times this month. I'm like, I have another band. If you want to play,
Yeah.
like, have this band on.
I,
It doesn't sound at all like DreamWell.
but I could still play for you.
Yeah, it'll be cool, I think.
Yeah, no, it's totally, and like some of that stuff, I feel like could fit. I mean, because I was listening to Volume 3 the other day. I was like, because I really wanted, I thought that was such a cool like album you guys did, because like it was parts A through D, and like it felt like it
Mhm.
told like a really cool story. I was like, I was really digging it. I think I think I listened to the whole thing in like one day. I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it's like it was kind of it is like separate entities, but like it also was meant to flow together. Like we actually like put it and lined it up to make sure everything would flow into each other. And it could be listened to like front to back. It's funny because like I feel like I might like I'm glad we did that, but like if I'd known that I would have been sitting inside, um, not being able to go anywhere, for like a year and a half in 2020, like I might have chosen to live my 2019 differently than making 4 fucking albums
Yeah, I
because that was my
understand that.
life.
Yeah, nice
And
touch.
the other thing with that one was that kind of the whole concept was that each member of the band at the time, uh, would write their own, like, mini album.
That's awesome.
Uh, so, and then it was kinda like you can kinda choose your own direction with it, like, there wasn't really a fixed direction, like, you had to choose. So James's is that he'd been writing this just, like he'd been just, like, intricately composing this thing in Guitar Pro for, like, 5 or 6 years, um, like super intricately, like, putting in, like, the dynamics and the accents and, like, all the backing tracks, like, these Guitar Pro sessions have, like, 40 tracks in them,
Dang.
uh, like, it's crazy, and then recorded it all, um, that was one of the most challenging mixes I've done, that would be challenging for me still, uh, just because there was so much, there were so many vocal tracks to edit because he was doing, like choral style
Yeah.
parts where it was like there was like 12 vocals at a time at some points that were all doing different things.
Dang.
Um, so it was really intricate. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the concept. It was each member doing a different type of album. And Volume 3A was kind of like it was probably the closest to what we'd done on the previous album, so that's kind of why we put it first. And then we started moving towards the heavier and darker stuff. And then when I wrote Volume 3C, um, and that was kind of the closest to what we did, where it was like, okay, I think this is the direction we kind of want to move towards in general, of just like heavy, like blackened, like mathy sludge stuff. Dissecting was kind of like the um somewhat of a follow up to that sound of like 3C. There's like a whole I think this is kind of like DreamWell is the band where it's just like, yeah, we just make screamo music, like trying to be as like unpretentious as possible about it. And then ACOT is like we can indulge our all our like our bullshit, like create our own like universe. Have like a diagram of how all the albums like lead into each other.
Hell yeah.
Have like the
Totally.
4-part songs that show up on different albums and make their own series. Uh, and yeah, just kind of like getting to explore different aspects of like my musical identity. So
That's
it's
awesome.
fun. We haven't had the chance to do it. Maybe if there's like another like pandemic or something, God forbid, we would do it. But we actually were planning at one point a volume point five as a prequel to volume one, where we basically found like all these guitar tabs of stuff that Aaron and James wrote like before I even joined the band, and like we did the like volume one stuff, where it was just like even earlier like kind of post rocky like songs. Uh, and it was like, oh, it'd be really cool to like come back to these and finish these songs and like release it as like a prequel album. But it's like that never. That's if only we could just like pause life, go on a little
Yeah.
like side quest for a bit, and
the
come back.
the hyperbolic time chamber to get it done.
Yeah. I feel like I've done a few albums that have taken so long that it's kind of effectively like finishing my old songs.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's like I feel like it's kind of like you're taking like the most powerful parts of yourself. You're taking the groundedness and the technical ability and knowledge of current you, and then you're taking the whimsy of
Totally.
like past you, and almost like naivety.
Hmm.
Like there is some like stuff that I wrote like 6 or 7 years ago where it's just like this is crazy because I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Totally.
Um, and my brain hadn't like I've listened to so many people's music that and like I mix so much music for so many hours at this point that there's like a very like there's, like, such an imprint of, like, what's correct now.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. Like your brain just is trained to hear those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like, the back then, like, there I was just kind of making shit up.
It's weird sometimes. Like I remember becoming like a theory head for a minute, but then it's like it totally screwed my like writing process because I'm like I'd be writing stuff like, but that's not right. But then you come
Oh, yeah,
back around, you're
especially for
like,
DreamWell, like, I've had to, like, unlearn theory.
totally,
It's nice to have when I'm like, "Oh, can I transpose this song?" Or, like,
yeah,
I wrote 2 completely unrelated parts, how do I get to each other? How do I, like, get them together?
yeah,
Um, but, like, screamo is, like, a genre that is based on, like, people who don't know how to play music, but are just so sad that they, like, have to play music, that they're
yeah.
gonna pick up a guitar and, like, make something out of, like, desperation. So I, like, try to channel that. Uh, I've seen comments on Dreamwall where it was like, "Oh, this sounds too, like, the guitar parts are written in like, a way that's too, like, sterile." And I'm like, "That's, I mean, I get it." Um, and that's me after I've, like, undone a lot of the theory
Yeah.
and, like, being in a fucking, like, technical death metal band when I was 18.
Yeah.
That's me trying to undo that damage and just, like, play more unhinged and freely.
That's awesome.
After I go on a few more tours and get, like, COVID, like, 5 more times, then I'll be doing it for real. I'll be, like, stupid for real.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just fun to play like ugly chords. Like
Yeah.
it's just you sit down and just make noise.
Yeah, like, if I pick up a guitar and just start, like, aimlessly fucking around, like, while I'm doing something else, it's probably gonna be like a panic chord
Yeah.
or, like, a tritone. Um, just probably some position, some chord position that sounds really ugly, and I'm like, "This
Yeah.
is relaxing. This brings me comfort and
Totally.
and
I remember
happiness."
trying to do like the most fucked up chords you could find. Like how can I put like just stack like minor seconds in weird ways on a guitar neck and just make it sound ugly? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like there always has to be another there has to be a more fucked up chord. Like, if this chord's fucked up, we can probably make it worse.
Totally.
Or, like, if one guitarist is doing a fucked up thing, then the other guitarist can layer it an even more fucked up thing. That's like we're writing more ACOD stuff, and that's kinda what we've been doing, where we're just like, "Okay, this is cool, but what if you put everything up a fret, and then we all play it together, and now it's gonna be even
It's
more
just
fucked up."
that's awesome. That's totally I'm excited to hear it.
I
How
love that era of, like, deathcore before they started getting, like, $1,000,000 productions,
yeah, yeah.
where it's just that was, like, my shit, like, towards the end of high school, like, beginning of college, was just that, like, first 4 or 5 years of, like, deathcore when it, like, kinda sounded like sludge in a lot of ways, like,
Yeah.
I listened to, like, I've, like, come back to the first, like, Suicide Silence album,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "This has more in common with, like, Cult Leader than it does with, like, deathcore today,
Totally. Yeah,
because it's
'cause
just, like, the most, like, unhinged, disgusting, like, tone, like, that clearly wasn't recorded to a click, like, the drummer did not stay on the beat, but it was, like, in, like, a cool way where it, like, lags in a really gross way. I was trying to oh, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like, on the top like, on, like, mixing and stuff too, the one person who I think is doing, like, modern deathcore pretty well is, like, Will Putney as, like, a mix
Mhm.
engineer. Like, I feel like a lot of those mixes actually have, like, body to them, where, like, a lot of those deathcore mixes, I'm like, "Y'all don't have any low mids."
Yeah,
You have,
yeah.
like, 1,000 hertz and up, and then you have, like, some, like, sub bass.
Exactly. You're missing out on uh that tubby but heaviness.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like, you've probably seen me use, like, the tonal balance control in my mixes, and that's always my blind spot as I'm like, "Uh, no low mids. I gotta
Yeah.
gotta figure that out." And it's usually just a matter of like, "Oh, does, anything need to cut a little more? And do the low mids not sound horrible? That can go there."
Yeah, trying to fit those frequencies. I know because I tend to like one of the first things I always do. It's like you high pass and then I go straight to like 500. I'm like, do I like anything in here? And then I almost get like the Slayer like 2000s where I'm just like cutting all the mids. I'm like, no, I gotta have something in there. Like that sound is not what anyone wants to hear anymore.
Yeah, I think, I definitely like happy face EQ a lot of my instruments sometimes. I'm just like, "Honestly, if it works, it works. Leaves
Totally.
room for the vocals."
Exactly. You have somewhere to sit them. I noticed you're using like you have a bunch of cool compressors and stuff that you're using because you have a bunch of different versions of like the 76 and
Mhm. I've been using the Arturia one a lot
Arturia.
lately.
That's what it was. Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's fun to see different versions of the plugins and like how people um, use them. So I've been like nerding
Mhm.
out on your stream. If I'm ever distracting or annoying, please let me know. Um,
That's part of what the stream's for, just being able to talk about gear and stuff. Uh 'Cause I can, like, find more gear too. With, like I've been using so much of the Arturia stuff lately, like, it's like that stuff's, like, crazy good. That's, like, half of my I love it, my computer kinda hates it. Um,
I understand that.
it's like, I know why it sounds that good because it's using, like, so many resources, but, like, it gets the job done. Like, yeah, so many of the distortions, I was using their, like, preamp emulations too because, like, preamp emulations are, like, super hit or miss for me, like, it's, like, super easy to make, like, garbage one. Like, most of the ones I bring up where it's like, "This is like distortion, but bad."
Yeah,
Um, but that's, like I feel like they get it right where it's like, "Oh, this is it's doing what, like, an analog preamp would do for me and giving it that, like, body and, like, smoothing it out without just being a distortion or a compressor." Um, like, it's actually doing a nice subtle thing. I guess the problem with, like, audio plugins too is that you don't have it's not like there's no regulations.
yeah,
It's not like, um, like some industries where you have to check some criteria to call it an emulation or, like, call it this
yeah.
thing. Uh,
Totally.
with plugins, it's you can just call it whatever you want, like, um and, like, copy whatever aspects of the circuit or none of them. You could I think a lot of people, like, are just throwing a lot of this like, the compressor, analog compressor emulations are just, like, a stock compressor and, like, a wave shaper,
Yeah, for sure.
and then a fancy interface.
Yeah. I know it's hard, especially when like you've used the real gear, so you know like how like ballpark it's supposed to feel because they're
Mhm.
all a little bit different. But yeah, no, there's definitely some of those like some of those 76 plugins. You're like, this doesn't feel or sound like a 76 at all.
Yeah. I need to get a real 76. I have the 2A,
Nice.
um, by, it's the warm one.
Yeah, yeah,
I've, like every vocal ever since I got it, like, I'll just slam every single vocal track I get through that, like, all the way, like, 20 dB, um, and it usually is what I want. There's sometimes where it's, like, a little too aggressive to do that, um, or there's, like, weird stuff in the editing that, like, messes with that. Uh, but, like, for the most part, I'm like, "Yeah, it sounds better."
yeah. Sweet.
Like, it's better start like, I'm already, like, 20% of the way to my vocal mix with that. It is, like, time consuming though, uh, so I usually stick to vocals. For, Daniel's album, I've been doing, since he specially requested it, uh, I was doing some of the guitars through it too.
Oh, nice.
Only if the levels were, like, kind of uneven. Um, Otherwise, I was just taking the software. But, I bought a bunch of, like, software around, Black Friday or
That's the way to go.
Cyber Monday or whatever,
Yeah.
last November. I actually think I picked up the, it was, like, the Purple Audio 76,
Oh,
which
nice.
I've it's pretty good, but mostly using the Arturia one. Um, but, it came with it had an option to choose a free one, and I was like, "Oh, the Universal Audio LA2A plugin? Oh, shit, yeah, I want that." So I got it for free,
That's
and,
awesome.
I've just been, like, using the shit out of that, I'll use it like an actual, like an analog gear on, on a recording chain, and I'll just, like, copy paste it onto, like, all my stuff.
Totally.
So it's, like, actually hitting it track by track.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know I do that sometimes with on when I'm on my like recording rig, I have like my vocal chain set up through the UA with the 2A and like a preamp. It's like, yeah, it just sounds great going in. It's awesome. I love it. It's because you run a Windows based system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's funny. I have a PC, but it's mainly for like streaming stuff. To where I have a Mac, and that's like my music production machine.
We were, like, going to build like, a Mac Pro,
Hmm.
and it was, like, gonna be, like, $6,000 to start, like, a
Yeah,
base model,
yeah,
and we were like, let's see what we can do with Windows."
yeah.
Uh, and
Not a bad.
we actually, like, got pretty good specs on it. Um, it was, like, 4 years ago now. Like, we probably have to, like, replace a bunch of stuff,
Good old
um,
computers.
because, like, I feel like, the plugins have definitely, like, gotten more complex since then. Um, because when I first got the computer, like, it was really hard for me to, make it, like, lag. But, like, last night,
Mhm.
by the end of that song, it was like, "Okay, this is, like, fucking my shit up."
Yeah,
Just because so many of, like, the high-end plugins are, like, way more intensive.
totally. It always sucks when that happens. I like for the longest time when I was in school, I was using like an old MacBook Pro, so like I'd have to like bust everything down and like stem everything down in order to like do a mix because after like you get your drums set up and then it's like the computer would just shut down. You're like, okay, this is the drum mix
Oh
for
god,
now.
yeah.
Like,
Um, yeah, the first, Vivid Illusion album I did, I think the MacBook I had, like, 4 gigs of RAM on it, um, and I was doing, like, parallel mixes, like, I did, like, the main part of the mix, and then I, like, did all the, like, ambient background stuff that had all the, like, crazy shit on it. I had to do that in another session and just, like, bounce down each part of it and go back and forth
yeah,
and then it would obviously take, like, 15 minutes to open each one because the computer was shitty.
yeah,
So that was just, like there was I also had, this, like, really shitty, hack of, like, Waves plugins,
yeah,
which, like, yeah, fuck that company.
yeah,
Um, but, for some reason, every time I opened a session, they would be marked as on, but they would be running in bypass.
yeah,
And then I would have to go through and turn each one of them off and on again for the session to work. And if I missed one, then it would fuck my mix up. Like the mix wouldn't be right.
yeah.
So every time I open one of these sessions, there would be like a solid couple of minutes of just like toggling every single one of those plugins.
Totally.
So
I think I knew so many people had those cracks from back in the day.
yeah.
Like, we just got it all, man. Yeah. Good times.